morning. How are you doing? Thank you, sir. Thank you. We ready? I'm ready. Okay. Are you? I think so. Bernard, how are you? Good morning. First, thank all of you for being here today. As you know, we're here to sign a new piece of legislation into law that will have a dramatic effect on the families that you see here today, but also additional families all across the state of Louisiana. And I'd like to start by thanking some people who made this possible. First of all, Senator Fred Mills, whose passion on this issue drove him to lead this fight for these families around the state of Louisiana and author the bill and work it so hard, not just this session, but for the last couple of years. Representative Helena Moreno, who led the fight on this issue in the House of Representatives and to raise awareness of this issue. I also want to thank the other legislators who are here today for lending their support to this bill, both in the House and in the Senate. I also would like to point out that we have some folks with us, Katie and Coy Corcoran, and Alan and Wendy Pesh and Larry Rooker, and all the families here who spent hours and hours in committee and the House and Senate chambers to put real faces to this cause. And their passion and their voice made all of this possible. So I want to thank them not just for being here, but for lending their effort to this cause. And I would like to thank all of the legislators, not just those here with us today, but all those who supported the bill. We've got a lot going on in Louisiana as we continue the work to rebuild our state. But today, at least on this issue, we're making a real impact on the lives of many families across the state. And I want to thank all of the legislators for their diligent work. In fact, Tanner McGee, I understand you're in the running for best floor speech of the session on this bill. So thank you for your help. Also with us today is former State Senator Tony Garisco, who introduced similar legislation back in 1978. So thank you very much for being with us, Tony. You know, often we are too caught up in the politics of what goes on here. We don't take a moment to reflect on the work we do here in this building and how it impacts people across the state. And this is one of those bills that I believe will have a positive impact on people who need it the most. Simply put, the state of Louisiana should not interpose itself between doctors and patients. When the doctors believe that they have a patient who will benefit from medicinal marijuana, is so long as we have relatively tight controls on that, that we're not going to have a slippery slope where it becomes a medicine that is recommended for every ailment out there. And so long as we can have confidence that things are going to remain under control. And that's what we have in this bill. It is carefully crafted, but it is meaningful, and it is going to provide ultimately, and hopefully not in the too distant future, meaningful relief to families across the state of Louisiana. It simply is unacceptable to tell parents of kids especially that if they want to make available to their kids the medicine that is being recommended by their doctors in order to achieve some better quality of life, some reduction in pain, other symptoms, that they have to move. That's not the way we should conduct business in Louisiana, so certainly this bill brings us in the right direction. This is one of the easier things that we're going to do this session, for me at least, but also one of the most important. And I'm so excited to sign this bill into law and give kids like Connor and John and Ella. Ella is not here today, by the way, because she has moved to Colorado already. But her grandfather is here, and I want to thank him for being here. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Senator Mills so he can make some comments, and then he'll be followed by Representative Moreno, and then I will take a few moments to sign the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Let's give our Governor a big round of applause for his support. He supported this all along the way. And Brandy, I see you on the first row, and I want to thank you for your testimony you gave in the House. You did a great job. I don't know where to start to thank everybody, because everyone in here, from the staff to the patients, to the parents, to our governor, to the First Lady, to the representatives and senators you see here, even to the press. The press was so kind to give coverage to bring this to the forefront that I guess I just have to tell you two quick stories, because you always wonder what's the motivation behind legislation, especially when you can have legislation that's your own. But my motivation from the get-go was so many parents and so many people just calling me knowing, how do I get medical marijuana? I've been getting those calls since the 90s when I was running the Louisiana Board of Pharmacy, when it was legal from the 70s and the 90s. And then I guess the most touching call for me was a lady by the name of Allison Newstrom, Sheriff Mike Newstrom's daughter in Lafayette. And she called me up and she said, I have cancer and I'm not sure how long I'm going to live. But she basically told me, she said, it's going to be too late for me, but I'd like to come testify. She testified in committee a couple of years ago. And in that testimony, she said what the governor just said. She said that should be a decision between a patient and a physician and no one else. And that's kind of been my motivation. And she passed away. And when she passed away, her dad, Sheriff Newstrom, who so many know Sheriff Newstrom in Lafayette, he called me up and he said, listen, I'd like to get law enforcement together with the medical community because it's time we move this legislation forward. And we named the bill after her. And then for me, my second journey was Michelle Hall, and so many of you back here, so many of you. But Michelle Hall came and she met me at my place of business, and she brought Ella Grace to my office. And she said, Fred, I want you to know that we're moving back to Colorado, and when we pass this legislation and this product becomes available, this medicine becomes available, we're coming back home. And I keep getting videos on almost a monthly or weekly basis from the family of her being on 17 medications in Louisiana that was getting no response, to now on Charlotte's Web, which is getting response. And for me and so many of my colleagues here, it was like, we have to get this done to give this opportunity. So we're going to sign the bill today. The governor's going to sign the bill today, and I thank him so much for it. And he gave us, as legislators, the leeway to make sure we had a bill that we could make things work and make it implementable. And that's what we did from last year to this year. We now have the bill where it can be implemented, it can be brought into patients for their well-being. And the next thing we have to do is now, when we pass legislation, we have to implement it. So you have my commitment that myself and my colleagues will be working as hard as we can to implement it. And I just see so many of you in here, and I want to thank each and every one of you. And I'd like to thank you individually, but the governor said I better hurry or he's going to kick me out. And I want to thank you all, from the press to the advocates, to the staff, to the people that need this most, to the First Lady, to the governor, to the legislators, to everybody here. God bless you. Thank you. I will never forget this moment to be with you guys. You wonder why you run for office, and I think today shows why we all run for office. God bless you all, and thank you so much. Thank you.
I'll be very brief as well, but I really think that the big round of applause should go to Senator Mills. Senator Mills, you really took this on. And he's been working so hard on this over the past couple of years. And I have to tell you, I didn't know much about medical marijuana until he brought me on board last year and said, Helene, I have a bill that I'd like for you to carry. And I said, okay, what is it? He said, it's medical marijuana. I said, okay, well, that's a little controversial. And I sat with Senator Mills, and he introduced me to some of the families who would be benefiting from medical marijuana. And from then I said, this is so easy. Why is this even controversial? It should be a no-brainer. Why should we not allow families to try whatever they can to make themselves or their children better? It was a no-brainer to me. So we started the process of working together on this last year and followed through with this this year. And I have to tell you, when this bill passed the House this year, you know, I remembered why exactly I'm doing this. It was probably, I think, for me, the biggest victory that I've felt this session. We have a lot of hurdles that we're battling this year, from you know, the budget to a bunch of different issues. But on this one, I knew that when it passed the House, that this was making a true difference in people's lives. And I saw Connor and Katie in the back of the chamber, and it made it so easy for me seeing them fighting off some of the opposition to this bill because I knew that I was doing it for people like the Corcoran's. And I was just honored to be part of this. And like I said, it's a no-brainer. We already allow people to try experimental treatments when they are terminally ill. So this is just another step on trying to make people well in this state and keeping them here so that they don't have to move somewhere else to get the treatment that they need. So thank you.
So I'm going to sign the bill now, but before I do, I did want to mention Donna. Donna, of course, we know the Corkins. Katie and Coy come from Amite. We go to the same church and have for a long time, and so she's known Coy and Katie and Connor, but we also have Cooper and Aaron here with us today. But it was really that relationship with the Corkins that brought Donna into this issue as well, and I want to thank her for doing that. And I can tell you that that in terms of lobbying the governor, nobody did that more effectively than Donna did over the last couple of months. So Donna, thank you very much for that and for going to the committee meetings with Katie and with others to lend your support to what they were doing. I don't think I've used multiple pens to sign my name before.
You need more pens.
Okay, we have a new law. Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you. Denise, thank you. All right, I'm not going to kiss you.
Thank you, Governor.
Jean, Terry, thank you. Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to go on with the press conference. They may be asked about things that you don't want to associate yourself with, so you don't want to get out of the picture here. Sure. I'm happy to do that. We can do that. Okay.
I want to get all the staff that wrote the bill and stuff.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
We can do that. Yeah, why don't you come on up and we'll.
Chris, all of these people wrote the bill and drafted it at one time.
Where are we looking? We're looking at right here. Okay.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. This was, in all the generations of the bill, from Christine, to Greg, to Chris, they all have hand in writing the legislation.
Y'all come on in. Congratulations, folks.
Wait, we got all polls.
Thank you.
That's my keepsake, is y'all.
Congratulations on your promotion. Thank you very much for your work. Good to see you. Okay. Thank you so much.
You ain't popular command, though.
Okay. One more picture. All right. Come on up here. Thank y'all very much for your work on this as well.
Thank you. Thanks again, Bill.
All right, don't forget this. Okay, with that, we have our press conference, and I've made all the statements I'm going to make today. I'll now respond to your questions. Ms. Sue?
Governor, would you weigh in on the boys will be boys incident on the House floor yesterday,
Yeah.
especially in light of the Equal Pay Act being heard
Yeah.
downstairs?
Well, and I think your question is especially timely because of that. It's unfortunate that the amendment was offered. I accept at face value that Representative Havard intended it to be a joke, but I also know that it was in bad taste and that it wasn't funny, and that it's a very unfortunate incident. And I think folks like Helena Moreno, who was here, and Julie Stokes, Nancy Landry, I think they were right to be upset about it, and I think that the comments that they made were appropriate. But it would also be appropriate to be upset about the fact that in Louisiana, we don't pay our women who do the same job as men, the same as we pay men. In fact, the pay gap in terms of pay equity is the largest in our state in the entire country. And in fact, if you include Washington, D.C., we're actually 51st in the country. That, too, ought to be very disconcerting to all of us, not just the female legislators, but to all of us. And we have an opportunity today in the House Labor Committee to advance a bill to the floor that would meaningfully address that. And I hope they will take advantage of this opportunity. I know that we've been working it hard. I think they're considering the bill right now. So hopefully they'll take advantage of this opportunity. And so we can get off the bottom of that list.
I have a follow-up on that. Now, we know that you are pro-life. The 72-hour bill is headed your way.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider, as a statement, vetoing the bill because the ostensible premise of it, that women do not know their own minds, is offensive?
No, I won't consider vetoing. In fact, I'll be signing it later this morning. Yes, sir.
Agree with Representative Stokes' characterization of women's treatment in the legislature. You served in the legislature for 2 terms. Did you hear the things that she described in her speech, and do you share concern about the attitudes toward women in the legislature?
Well, first of all, nothing comes to mind right now that I remember overhearing or witnessing, but I will freely admit I may not be as sensitive to these issues as I should be. And so if they say, if Representative Stokes, Representative Landry, Representative Moreno, and others say that they too often hear comments made that are inappropriate, then I accept what they say at face value. And I believe that we ought to do better. And I don't know that people intend to be offensive when they say certain things or do certain things, but we're just not sufficiently sensitive sometimes, and that those things ought not be said and ought not to be done. Hopefully we can do better. We don't have, in my opinion, enough females in the House and in the Senate today. And if we had more, I suspect these types of things would not occur. Yes, sir.
Governor, I want to change subject if I may. I've seen a draft document that shows that you are hoping to raise about $500 million during the special session. I have 2 related questions. Is that an accurate figure rather than $600 million? Second is the figure that the document I've seen raises most of the money by making changes in the state income tax. And then a third related question, have you ruled anything out at the special session?
First of all, I don't know that I've seen the draft document that you're talking about.
Happy to share it with you later.
Well, but I can't comment on it now and then see it later. We are waiting a report from the task force, which we believe we will get tomorrow, very shortly thereafter. They meet again on the 20th. I've always said that I'm not going to get ahead of them in terms of what we're going to propose and what the central focus of the special session will be with respect to how we raise the additional revenue that we need. We are somewhat relieved that coming out of the I think it was May 12th REC meeting, that the number didn't grow. And that's the first REC meeting in a while where the deficit actually didn't grow in terms of what we are confronting for the year starting July 1st. But you all will have much more information in the next few days about the approach we're going to take in the second special session. I'm not prepared to get into that right now, Tyler.
I did ask you just whether the 500 million seems about right, or is it, do you think the figure's going to be 600 and you will then come out?
I know, and I said I will get back to you in a couple of days. Yes, ma'am.
During the House floor debate on the budget, we heard a lot about the public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Darden has said that there is a process going right now reviewing those. I guess, can you just tell us how you feel about the contracts right now as they stand, and how this is all come out in the budget?
Well, first of all, it's a very difficult process that we're engaged in, because we are negotiating with all of our private partners to keep them in place, but at a savings. That is hard to do, and complicating things further were the committee amendments in the House, where the money that was necessary, even at a savings to keep 5 hospitals open, was the same amount was spread across 9. There would have been absolutely no way to keep those hospitals open, all of them, had in fact that House committee work been accepted by the House as a whole and by the legislature. But we are working very diligently and with these partners who are engaging with us in good faith. Nobody likes to sit at the table to negotiate a reduced amount of money, and that's what we're telling them they have to do. But we have to achieve savings. When you have a $600 million state general fund shortfall, you have to achieve savings. There is no other way. You have to cut expenditures, and so we are doing that. One of the things that complicates this is that no two contracts, no two agreements look the same. And so they all, you can bring them all into the room at one time and give them very general information about what we're trying to do and what necessitates the actions we're taking. But then you've got to sit down individually and not just negotiate individually, but negotiate from very different contracts. And so it is very time-consuming. But Jay Darden and the folks at the Division of Administration are doing a great job, assisted by Dr. Gee and others at DHH and my executive counsel, Matthew Block, to make sure that we are successful. And I'm convinced that we are going to be successful, and we're going to be able to come to a satisfactory resolution of this issue, both from our perspective and from the private provider's perspective, to keep them in those hospitals.
Just to follow up on that, we heard a lot of legislators characterizing this as bad deals. They think that the state's losing money on this, or,
Yeah.
Especially Lance Harrison was asking about the profit margins for them. What is your opinion of that?
Well, it is certainly true that they were too hastily put together. I don't believe that they were carefully created, negotiated in the first instance, which makes it harder for us to make those corrections now. I think you had a very philosophical decision made by my predecessor that we would privatize these hospitals, and then he wanted to do it in a very quick way so as to have it done before the legislature came back into session the next session. It resulted in things like the LSU Board of Supervisors approving contracts with dozens of blank pages, including critical parts like the consideration to be paid. I mean, it was not the approach that you would ever want to take on something so serious and significant as our safety net hospitals. But we are where we are. We accept that, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to revise those agreements so that the state is in a better position. And we're going to work with these partners to make sure that to the maximum extent possible, they are relying upon other sources of revenue rather than just state general fund. We're going to make sure that they're very aggressively trying to get reimbursements from private insurance when it's available to them, that when individuals show up at these hospitals who are eligible for Medicaid coverage but they don't have Medicaid, that they will assist us in getting those people into Medicaid, so that rather than paying what could be 100 cents on the dollar in state general fund, or if it's dish dollars, which we're currently paying 68 cents on the dollar for, that we get to trade that reimbursement out, where for the first 6 months of this next year it'll be nothing from the state, and for the second 6 months of the year it'll be 5%, but never more than 10% going forward. So that's how you achieve the savings, but it requires those hospitals to change their business model a little bit, and that's part of what we're working through right now. And by the way, they're engaging with us in good faith. Yes, ma'am.
Can you comment on the version of the budget that passed from the House
Yeah.
and what changes you're asking senators to make to that bill?
Well, first of all, I think what passed the floor of the House was certainly a much better budget than came to the floor out of the House Appropriations Committee. It's much more balanced. There are some things, quite honestly, that are very problematic. One of the ways that they've supposedly found or saved $100 million is to take self-generated revenue and fees and use some portion of that money to retire state debt. Well, by definition, if you're going to use a fee to retire state debt, it ceases to be a fee and it becomes a tax. And so that is problematic going forward. And I'm not even sure that you can do that in an even-numbered general session, because we're not supposed to be doing taxes in this session. So I think there's a problem there. But secondly, even if you're talking about 3.3%, that's across the board. So we have state agencies now who, on top of all of the cuts that they were already getting in the budget, will lose another 3.3%. And when you look at an agency like the Department of Health and Hospitals, that is a lot of money when we're already struggling to keep our private partners in these safety net hospitals, when we're struggling to make sure that optional Medicaid services continue to be provided, when we're struggling to make sure that we don't reduce the number of waivers that we're actually funding. So I think it's very problematic from that perspective, and I'm certainly having conversations with folks in the Senate to point that out. Secondly, I will tell you, I think it is a problem when you try to do substantive legislation within the appropriations bill. And while, as a governor, I appreciate the flexibility to look at and implement copays, the fact that you would put it in the appropriations bill, which is what was done on the House floor with an amendment from Representative Bacala, that makes the appropriations bill a fee bill. And I believe, in my opinion, it's not supposed to happen that way, and it makes it a 2/3 vote to pass the appropriations bill, which is supposed to be a simple majority. So, and in fact, we had a bill in front of the House Health and Welfare Committee to allow us to do copays as it relates to hospital visits for folks in the Medicaid program, and we couldn't get that out of the committee. But on the floor, they put it into the appropriations bill, which is not the right vehicle for it. So those are some concerns that I have. But just as it relates to the budget overall, we're still $600 million short. And that number is too large for us to responsibly fund the priorities of the people of Louisiana. And so what we have to do, and it's very difficult, and I have spent hours and hours and hours with Jay Darden and others trying to come up with the most responsible approach to take when you are that much short. And so you're going to see, I think, the Senate really struggle with putting this bill in the best possible posture so that we can move forward. And I think all of the effort that you're seeing and the concern that you're seeing, not just within the legislature, but with state agencies, with higher education, with people out across the state of Louisiana, that's testimony as to why we need to come back for a second special session so that we can fashion a budget that more responsibly funds our critical priorities.
So to be clear on that, though, are you asking the Senate to strip that copay language out and to strip out the fee suite?
Well, I'm having conversations with them. I believe that they're going to have to take it out of there. I don't believe that you can ever allow the appropriations bill to become a fee bill. That's what it is now. There's separate legislation that was introduced that could have enacted the copays. They decided not to do that in the House Health and Welfare Committee. Now, with respect to the $100 million, I think it is bad policy. And by the way, it's absolutely unnecessary because we have enough general fund dollars to meet our debt obligations, so you don't have to use self-generated revenue and fees to retire debt. But if you're going to do that, what you're doing is it's a fund sweep by another name. It's just you're sweeping funds across state government all at one time, but you are literally converting something that was imposed as a fee into a tax. I think that's bad policy.
Well, we have time for one more question.
Yes, ma'am, you get it.
How's the lighting plan going? Personally,
Well, the planning is going well. We're looking for an assist from Mother Nature. Initially, it was supposed to rain pretty much all day Saturday, but the closer we get, the better the weather looks. And I spoke to Samantha last night. I can tell you she's excited. We're excited, and we'll be having a rehearsal supper tonight. The reception will be at the mansion on Saturday night. The wedding will be in Amite at the St. Helena Catholic Church, which is our home church, and it'll be at the reception will be 2 or 3 hours later here in Baton Rouge at the mansion. Thank you for asking. Thank all of you for being here, and have a great